The billionaire mindset nobody talks about. It's not motivation. Most people are completely wrong about billionaires. They think it's motivation. They think it's discipline. They think it's some kind of unstoppable drive. It's not, because if motivation actually worked, everyone would be successful. But they're not. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Billionaires don't rely on motivation at all. In fact, most of them ignore it. Because the real advantage they have is something most people avoid. It's the ability to act without feeling ready, without feeling confident, and most importantly, without needing to feel anything at all. And once you understand this, you start to see why the gap between them and everyone else keeps getting bigger. Most people are completely wrong about billionaires. They think it's motivation. They think it's discipline. They think it's some kind of unstoppable internal drive that keeps them moving while everyone else slows down. It's not, because if motivation actually worked the way people believe it does, everyone would be successful. Everyone would follow through on their plans. Everyone would stay consistent. Everyone would build something meaningful, but they don't. And that gap, that distance between what people know they should do and what they actually do, that's where everything falls apart. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Billionaires don't rely on motivation at all. In fact, most of them see it as unreliable, almost useless, because motivation is emotional, and emotions are inconsistent. They show up when things feel exciting and disappear the moment things get difficult, repetitive, or uncertain, and that's exactly where real progress happens. Not in the exciting moments, but in the boring ones. The unclear ones, the ones where nothing feels certain and nothing feels rewarding yet. That's where most people stop, not because they're lazy, but because they're waiting to feel ready again, waiting for that spark to come back, waiting for clarity, for confidence, for the right moment. But that moment doesn't come, and even when it does, it doesn't last. Billionaires understand this early. So instead of building their lives around how they feel, they build systems around what needs to be done. And that changes everything, because now, action isn't dependent on emotion. It becomes automatic, expected, non-negotiable. They don't wake up and ask, "Do I feel like doing this today?" They already know the answer doesn't matter. The work gets done anyway. And this is where the real separation begins, not in intelligence, not in opportunity, but in how decisions are made. Most people treat emotions like signals. If they feel confident, they move. If they feel uncertain, they hesitate. If they feel overwhelmed, they stop. Billionaires don't operate like that. They treat emotions as background noise, something that exists but doesn't control direction. Instead of asking, "Do I feel ready?" they ask, "Does this make sense?" And that one shift removes a massive barrier, because now progress isn't waiting for permission. It's based on logic, on timing, on opportunity, and sometimes on incomplete information. That's another thing people don't talk about. Billionaires make decisions without full clarity. All the time there is no perfect data, no moment where everything lines up and feels safe. No guarantee that what they're about to do will work, and yet they move anyway. Not because they're reckless, but because they understand something most people don't. Waiting for certainty is the fastest way to miss opportunity. While others are analyzing, overthinking, second-guessing, they're already executing, testing, adjusting in real time, and that creates speed, not chaotic speed, but controlled, intentional movement, which leads to another uncomfortable truth. They're not afraid of being wrong, they expect it, because when you move fast and make decisions early, mistakes are part of the process. But instead of avoiding them, they use them. Every mistake becomes feedback. Every failure becomes data. Every wrong move becomes a correction. And because they're not emotionally attached to being right, they can pivot quickly, without hesitation, without ego. Most people struggle here because they tie their decisions to their identity. If something fails, it feels personal, like proof they're not good enough, not ready, not capable, so they slow down or stop completely. Billionaires separate those two things. A bad decision doesn't mean they are bad. It just means the strategy needs adjustment. And that mindset allows them to keep moving, even when things don't go their way, which is often because building anything at scale is messy, unpredictable, full of uncertainty, and that's exactly why motivation doesn't survive in that environment. It fades too quickly. It can't handle repetition. It can't handle pressure. It can't handle long periods without visible results, but systems can, clear thinking can, and disciplined execution without emotional dependence can. And once you understand that, you start to see the real difference. It's not about who works harder. It's about who keeps going when there's no reason to feel like it. And this is where the gap really starts to widen. Because once you remove the need to feel motivated, you unlock something most people never reach. Consistency at a level that doesn't break, not for a week, not for a burst of energy, but over months and years. And that's where everything compounds, because success at that level isn't built on big moments. It's built on small actions, repeated so many times that they stop feeling small. Most people underestimate this. They chase breakthroughs, big ideas, big moves, big results. But billionaires focus on what happens daily, the quiet decisions, the boring execution, the things no one sees and no one applauds. Because they understand something simple but powerful. If you control the inputs long enough, the outcomes eventually follow, not instantly, not predictably, but inevitably. And that patience, that willingness to operate without immediate reward, is what most people struggle with. Because we live in a world that expects fast results, quick wins, instant progress, visible success. So when those things don't show up, people assume it's not working. They stop too early. They change direction too often. They never stay in one path long enough to see it compound. Billionaires do the opposite. They pick a direction. They commit, and then they stay long enough to let time do its work, even when it feels slow, even when it feels uncertain, even when it looks like nothing is happening. Because they know something most people ignore. Growth is invisible until it's undeniable. And by the time it becomes obvious to everyone else, it's already too late to catch up. But there's another layer to this, something even more important. They don't just work harder, they think differently about effort itself. Most people try to do more hours, more tasks, more pressure on themselves. But effort alone has limits. There's only so much time in a day, only so much energy you can push through. Billionaires understand this early. So instead of maximizing effort, they maximize leverage. They focus on actions that multiply results, people, capital, decisions that scale beyond their personal output. Because once leverage enters the equation, everything changes. Now one decision can impact thousands. One system can replace hours of manual work. One move can create long-term momentum. And this is how they grow faster without burning out. Not by doing everything themselves, but by building structures that keep working, even when they're not. And that brings everything back to the same core idea. They don't rely on how they feel, they rely on how things are built, their systems, their thinking, their approach to decisions, because feelings fluctuate. But structure doesn't, and over time, structure always wins. So no, it's not motivation, it's not some constant fire that never fades, it's something much quieter. Much more controlled. It's the ability to act without needing emotional permission, to stay consistent without external validation, to keep going when progress isn't visible, and to think long-term in a world obsessed with short-term results. That's the mindset nobody talks about. Because it's not exciting, it's not easy to sell, and it doesn't feel good in the moment, but it works every single time. And once you start operating this way, you stop asking, do I feel ready? And you start asking the only question that actually matters, am I moving forward or not? Because in the end, that's the only thing that separates those who build something real from those who stay stuck waiting for the right feeling that never comes. If this changed the way you see success, don't just move on and forget it. Take one thing from this and apply it today, not when you feel motivated. Not when it's convenient now. And if you want more breakdowns like this, real, unfiltered, and focused on what actually works, make sure you're subscribed. because the next video might challenge something you've believed for years.